Advaita Gadadeva Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome all of you to the Japa Talk. So the ultimate purpose of having a Japa Talk is so that we can come together and hear about the glories of the holy name, and also ultimately to be able to improve our japa. So in these ongoing series we've discussed so many different types of techniques, how we can improve our japa, and then a lot of common themes keep coming up again and again. For example, we should get up early in the morning and then do our japa during the Brahma Muhurta time when the mind is calm and when the nature itself, there's a lot of mode of goodness around, so it's much easier to do japa that time. Then again, how we should be sitting, in what should be the mood when we sit down for japa. uh, then how should we try to keep bringing the mind which keeps wandering here and there back to hearing the holy name, hearing the sound of the holy name, and so many other things that we have learned. So many different speakers have given their own flavors to it. Now all those things are very important and they certainly help us to improve our japa. But I was just thinking about that, ultimately all these different things that we keep endeavoring to do, ultimately we want to improve our japa by all of this. And to be able to, but why do we want to improve our japa? So for that we should feel inspired to do japa in the first place. And to feel inspired to do japa, now that inspiration generally comes when we like something, or when we have heard the glories about something. Even let's say if we haven't developed an attraction for something, if we just hear about the glories of something, we start to develop an attraction for it. And when we develop an attraction, we start making a lot of endeavors for it. Just like we've heard the stories of of the wives of the brahmanas in Vraja, how they had heard so much about Krishna, and they had never seen him. They had never seen him perform any of the activities. They only heard about the activities of Krishna from the gopis, when the gopis would go to the wells and the marketplaces and all that. And just by hearing so much about Krishna, they developed deep attraction for him. And because of that attraction, that the inspiration came for them to be able to renounce everything and then uh, actually go go to Krishna. When Krishna and his friends had come, when the yagya was going on, and when the brahmanas were not giving them uh, what they had asked for, some nice food stuff. So the brahmana patnis, the wives of the brahmanas, had actually that time gone and given them. So by knowing the glories of something, by hearing about the glories of something again and again, we develop an attraction for it. And when we develop an attraction for it, naturally the inspiration also comes to try to endeavor to improve in it. So that's why we have so many of the sessions we have just discussed the glories of the holy name. So I was thinking that there's a very nice bhajan. We'll just discuss that. So it's called Kevalashtaka, and it's quite very popular in ISKCON. It's sung in a lot of places. So it's a nice set of 8 verses where every stanza ends with Hare Naam Eva Kevalam. How the holy name of the Lord is everything. So the glories of the holy name have been very nicely described in these 8 stanzas. So this is actually this is not just 8 verses, not just 8 stanzas. So this is I was reading. There's an article on dandavats.com. How so Bhakti Vinod Thakur had written about this very Kevalashtakam uh, in his in one of the magazines, in I think back in the 1800s, 1885 or something. So this is written by, there was a very good Vaishnava by the name of Neelkanta Goswami, and he had written 100 verses glorifying the holy name. So Kevalashtakam is eight out of those 100 verses that have been put together, and then that is what we generally sing as a bhajan. So the first stanza goes like this: Madhuram madhurebhyopi mangalebhyopi mangalam pavanam pavanebhyopi Hare Nameva Kevalam. So Madhuram Madhurebhyopi. So this means sweeter than the sweetest thing. So whatever we can imagine, the sweetest thing that we can imagine in this world, holy name is actually sweeter than that. And this has been very beautifully described. When one realizes the sweetness of the holy name, what happens? So Rup Goswami has wonderfully described this in a verse that he composed for a drama that he was writing. So this comes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is there in the Antya Leela. So Rup Goswami was once writing a drama, and he wrote a particular verse. And that time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu happened to pass by him. And he said, Rup Goswami, what are you writing? Then he just took the manuscript that Rup Goswami had been writing, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started glorifying the handwriting of Rup Goswami. How he said, that his handwriting is like just like pearls are there on a paper. It seems like that. And then when he read the verse, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu read the verse that I'll just narrate, I'll just recite in a moment. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just went wild with ecstasy. He was so happy to hear about this verse that the next day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually brought the other devotees also, Ramanand Rai, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Swarup Damodar Goswami, that come see what Rup Goswami has written, and how the Lord has blessed Rup Goswami so much to be able to describe the glories, the sweetness of the holy name. So that particular verse goes like this. Tunde Tandavini Ratim Vitunate Tundavali Labdaye Karna Kroda Kadambini Ghatayate Karnarbudebhya Spriham Cheta Prangana Sangini Vijayate Sarvendriyanam Kritim Jane Janita Kiyadviramrite Krishneti Varnadvai. Krishneti Varnadvi, that these two syllables, I don't know how much nectar these have produced. Na jane janita kiyadbir amrite. Amrite is nectar. Na jane, I don't know how much nectar these two syllables, Krishna, have produced. That when one starts to chant, when Tunde Tandavani Ratim, Tunde means tongue, that when one chants this, the holy name actually comes and starts dancing on the tongue. Tunde Tandavini starts to perform Tandavini. Ratim Vitunate. That time the attraction increases so much. Tundavali Labdhaye. So Tundavali. Avali means groups, just like we have Dipavali. So what does Dipavali mean? That you have rows and rows of diyas that have been arranged. So Avali means groups of. So Tundavali Labdhaye, that one desires, lots and lots of tongues so that one can just keep on chanting this. Karna Kroda Kadambini Ghatayate, that when the holy name enters into one has chanted, when it enters the ears of the holes of the ears, that time the inspiration increases so much that Karnar Budhebhya Spriham. Spriham means desire, that one desires to have millions and millions of years. Cheta Prangana Sangini Vijayate, that in the courtyard of the heart, the holy name comes and gives so much ecstasy that Sarvendriyanam Kritim, that all the other senses become inert and the mind becomes completely irrelevant. So this is the Rupa Goswami has described how sweet the holy name is. Madhurebhyam Madhurebhyopi, that how it is sweeter than the most sweetest thing in this world. That when one actually tastes the sweetness of it, one just goes wild and mad in ecstasy. Now the natural question is then, why don't we find it to be sweet? Because and Rupa Goswami, the same Rupa Goswami, has answered that in Nectar of Instruction in text number 7. That's a wonderful book, just a set of 11 verses, Nectar of Instruction, something that sadhaka should take very seriously, and we should try to read it on a regular basis. So Rupa Goswami, in the 7th verse, he says that the holy name, the character, pastimes, and activities of Krishna, they're all naturally sweet like sugar candy. These are all very, very sweet. The problem is that just like the tongue of a jaundiced person, when a tongue is afflicted, they're not able to taste anything sweet. So similarly, our tongue has been afflicted by the disease of avidya. Our minds have been afflicted by the disease of avidya. Because of that, we're in a disease condition. Now, what is the remedy for this? The remedy is, keep a jaundiced person has to keep taking the sugarcane juice. By just keep taking on that sweet thing, naturally a time will come gradually that they will start relishing the sweet taste of the sugarcane juice. So similarly, Rupa Goswami says that in the same verse, that by carefully chanting these sweet names, So the word that has been used over there is Adarat Adinam. That means every day carefully chanting the holy names. Srila Prabhupada translates it as carefully chanting the holy names. That is what we try to do in Japa every day. That every day we chant 16 rounds where we very carefully, with attention, try to chant these sweet names. And over a period of time, gradually, it does not happen overnight, a natural relish will awaken and the disease is destroyed gradually. Uh, so that brings us to one important element in Japa, that patience is something very, very important. Patience, determination. Rupa Goswami also talks about it in an earlier verse in NY. That he says how dhairya, utsaha, nishtaya, dhairya. One should have enthusiasm, nishtaya, determination, as well as patience when one is on this particular path. And one should just keep going on and on. And then a day will certainly come when we will start to gradually start relishing the sweet names. And that is something that we have all experienced. I'm pretty sure every sadhaka has experienced in their own lives, that many times what happens, months and months might just pass by where we have been chanting, we've been trying, and then nothing seems to be happening. And then all of a sudden, someday, we sit down and with the same sincerity, and then all of a sudden, Krishna just gives some inspiration in the heart, and we taste the sweetness of the holy name. And at the end of it, we realize, wow, how did that happen? And so that happens because of the mercy of the Lord. When the Lord becomes pleased, he awards this particular taste. So we have to just keep on going on sincerely trying without failing. Every day, whenever we sit down for japa, we have to carefully chant these holy names. The mind might keep wandering here and there. We have to just keep bringing it back. So continuing with our bhajan. So Maduram Madhurebhyo api Mangalebhyo api Mangalam Pavanam Pavanebhyo api. So Mangalebhyo api Mangalam means Mangalam means auspicious, and Mangalebhyo api Mangalam. So out of all the auspicious things, holy name is the most auspicious thing. So in this world that we are in, being devotees, we don't care so much about it. But if you actually go and talk to people who are still sort of in the Vedic fold, that who are especially people who come from the Brahmana families, or in general religious people, pious people, they care a lot about auspicious and inauspicious things. They care about what are in fact, that I once had a friend and he was filling in the form for some competitive exam, and his mother told him, no, don't fill in the form at this time, wait. And then she spoke to an astrologer, found out an auspicious time for when he should be filling in the form. Like, this is not even just writing the exam or studying for the exam, this is just filling in the form. And then they looked at the astrological chart, figured out an auspicious time, and then she told him that in the night at 8:30 p.m. you should fill in the form. He did that, and then nothing happened. He failed in the exam, he didn't pass in that. So anyways, the point is that the people care so much about what is auspicious, what is inauspicious. So here it's written that the holy name is more auspicious than the most auspicious thing. That is the power of the holy name. And pavanam pavanebhyo api, how it is more purifying than all the other things that can purify. So we have this verse that we often chant when we do Vachmani, that this one, that how ultimately when one remembers the holy name of the Lord, or in general when one remembers the Lord, whether one is impure or pure, one becomes purified both internally and externally. Yasmaret Pundarikakshat. And when that one remembers, so similarly, when one remembers the holy name, that purifies one. And if we see any kind of auspicious activity that is done, not just auspicious, for example, any Krishna conscious activity that we do, for example, whenever we are doing an arti of the Lord. So now all these different aspects of Krishna consciousness, they also have the corresponding aspects of offenses as well. For example, when one is doing deity worship, one could be doing deity worship very elaborately, very nicely, but we might still go wrong in some place, because it's ultimately a vidhi and we have to do it properly as per the vidhi. So to overcome the offenses of that is why at the time of the arti we also sing the holy names, because Srila Prabhupada tells that just by singing the holy names, that makes everything auspicious, and that helps counteract all the offenses that we are doing. So initially, when I'd come into ISKCON, I also saw that there was a havan that was happening, and that was for, I think, the housewarming of someone. And traditionally, we've all seen whenever some housewarming happens, we call them brahmanas, and then the havan happens, they chant a lot of mantras. But in this particular havan, I saw they were only chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And because I was quite naive when I just joined the movement, so I asked my seniors about it, that why are they chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra? This is like, they should be chanting some proper mantras, right? And that is when my seniors told me that no, that the holy name of the Lord is so purifying and so auspicious that in any particular activity that you do, if you chant the holy names, that purifies it. So in fact, chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra during a particular any ceremony is very, very auspicious. That we also know that how in Srila Prabhupada, when he was taking sannyas, so that time during the sannyas ceremony, there was another sannyasi who was continuously chanting the holy names. Some people were objecting to it, but Srila Prabhupada said no, that he should continue chanting the holy names. So in fact, even devotees, when they want to go for generating progeny, so there's a garbhadhan samskar that needs to be done. So traditionally, if you look at all the scriptures, so that garbhadhan samskar is a proper havan needs to be done, and then yagya needs to be done, and all of that. It's very, very elaborate. But in the modern times, Srila Prabhupada has said that no, just chant the holy names, because chanting the holy names purifies everything, and that is the biggest yagya that one could do. So how holy name is so purifying that it can actually be a substitute for every other kind of auspicious or purifying activities that are generally done. Now next stanza is Abrahma stamba parvyantam sarvamaya mayam jagat satyam satyam puna satyam hare nameva kevalam. Brahma Stamba Paryantam. So from Lord Brahma, Stamba Paryantam, down to the clump of grass. Sarvam Maya Mayam Jagat. Everything is full of illusion. The whole Jagat, the entire universe is full of illusion. In our own lives, we see that oftentimes we get so entangled with our day-to-day activities that we actually become so engrossed in the activities that we start getting affected so much by it. For example, somebody says anything to us in a particular in our job, or let's say if we have a quarrel with a friend or our spouses, that affects us so much. And then oftentimes, so many hours or so many days also pass by just being affected by that particular thing. Or let's say someone loses a job, and they become so much frantic to find another job, which is important. All these duties are quite important. But we become so much affected by all these things, and ultimately everything in this world comes to an end, right? When we die, at that time, I don't know, would it really matter whether what post we retired from, whether we got that particular promotion that we were so craving for, whether we wanted to buy a house but we didn't have the money, or when we took a loan and we were so worried about paying back the loan. So recently Gurujan Prabhu had come a few months back, and then he was saying, let's say somebody lives for 80 years, and imagine that throughout their 80 years a video is being made. So whatever we are experiencing, let's say if a live footage, a live video is being made of whatever we are going through, okay? So what would be the size of that video when it is made, when we are about to die? It would be the life that we have lived, that is, let's say 80 years. So I don't know how much 80 years long video would take, probably like terabytes and petabytes of storage. But instead of watching it at the normal speed, you watch it at 100 times the speed. So 100 times, 1,000 times the speed. Let's say that entire 80-year video is shown in 8 minutes to you. So what would that look like? 8 minutes, everything is going so fast. So you would only be able to see the primary moments that happened in your life. Now imagine that same 8-minute video, now it's played within 8 seconds in front of you. So whatever we have lived throughout our life, whatever experiences that we have, that 8-second video is played in our minds when we are about to die. It is said that when one is about to die, the entire life flashes by. So throughout the life, whatever we have done, it'll just flash by. Now, all the things that we were so worried about when we were living our life, when we were saying, this is so important that I don't have time for my rounds, or I don't have time for my spiritual activities, all those things will be very, very, very insignificant. Social researchers have done so much research on this that they actually go to people who are on their deathbeds and ask them about, what have been the most important things about, what have been the most important things that in their own life that they think they should have done. And getting a good job, earning more money, or marrying someone very beautiful, none of these things come up in any of the lists that people talk about. They all talk about, how they wish they had spent more time on their own development. Of course, these are materialistic people; they don't know about spiritual life. But uh, ultimately, the point is that all these things are illusory. So by illusory, it means it's a product of Maya, and these are all temporary. So when we are living in this world, we have a duty to perform. We should perform the duty properly, but at the same time, at the back of the mind, we should remember that how ultimately the ultimate reality is Krishna and his holy names. Satyam Satyam Punah Satyam, Hare Naam Eva Kevalam. So once we have our priorities set in right, then on a daily basis, prioritizing amongst our various activities will not be a problem. We'll always give more priority to the holy names of the Lord. The next stanza is Saguru Sapita Chapi Samata Bandhavopi Sa Shikshaye Chet Sada Smartum Harinameva Kevalam. There's a beautiful stanza. It says that that person is a true preceptor, Sa Guru, Sa Pita Chapi, or a true father, Sa Mata Bandhavo Api Sa, or a true mother, Sa Mata Bandhavo Api Sa, or a true friend. Shikshaye Chet Sada Smartum. Only if they teach one to always remember that Hare Naam Eva Kevalam. So this stanza shows what is the criteria of success of a particular societal position that we might be occupying. That this also comes in Bhagavatam, that how one should become a guru or a mother or a father only if they can actually ensure that they are able to deliver their dependents. And what is the best way of delivering people who are dependent on us is by teaching them the glories of the holy name. How Hare Naam Eva Kevalam, how ultimately the holy name of the Lord is everything, and how only that can help us in getting delivered from this world. The next stanza, Nishvase nahi vishvasa kadarodho bhavishyati kirtani amato balyad Hare Nameva Kevalam. Nishvase nahi vishvasa. Nishvase means when the breath stops, nahi vishvasa. So there is no certainty when the last breath will come, when it will be the end of our life. Kada ruddho bhavishyati. Kada ruddha. Ruddha means stop. Bhavishyati. When our future will just cease to exist. When. So this is just saying that there is no certainty when we will die. It might come any moment. Kirtaniya mato balyat. That is why it is wise that from one's childhood, Kirtaniya Mato Balyar, one should keep practicing to chant the holy names. So this also signifies how we should chant the holy names always, 24 hours. It should not be limited to just the 24 hours that we are chanting, but even in our free time. So again, coming back to Burijan Pru's, what he had told us. So he has also written a nice book, My Glorious Master. So in that he describes various pastimes that he experienced with Srila Prabhupada. So once Prabhuji and a few other devotees were going in an aeroplane, and so everyone was just sitting idle. So Burijan Pru started chanting. He didn't have his beats, but he was still chanting under his breath. And Srila Prabhupada asked him, "What are you doing?" So he said, "I'm just chanting the holy names." And Srila Prabhupada said to another devotee, this is such a nice habit that Burijan Pru has. This is something that you should always cultivate. And then Burijan Pru writes an anecdotal experience of that particular incident that had happened. That the main learning was that whenever one gets any time, let's say we might be doing a job, so every time there is always some time in between that we get few minutes here and there. As soon as we realize that our mind is idle, we should start chanting the holy names. And this is such a wonderful practice. And one starts doing this before going to bed in the night, when one actually pays obeisances to one's guru, Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Similarly, as soon as one wakes up in the morning, we pay obeisances to our gurus and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that time, immediately before going to the bed, after paying the obeisances, we should start chanting the holy names. And when one does this is something that I've heard a lot of devotees mention, and something that I've also experienced. When you get up in the morning, automatically in the mind the holy name will come, because you went to bed by chanting the holy names. In the mind, just chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. It may seem boring initially, but when one does this slowly, this is something that I've just heard senior devotees talk about, that you start relishing chanting the holy names all the time. And I've seen so many of the senior devotees here that when they are just doing anything, let's say driving, and they'll keep chanting. If they're stopping on a red light, there's nothing to do, they'll chant or recite a verse. They're just going in a lift. As soon as there is any kind of idleness, the mind should immediately start chanting the holy names. So this is even Rup Goswami, coming back to Nectar of Instruction. So in the verse after the 7th verse that I told about, he says, he gives the essence of all advice, and he says the essence of all advice is kalam naed akilam iti updesha saram. Updesha saram means the essence of all advice is kalam. One should utilize all his time, akilam, the full time that one has in, and then he gives a list of instructions, and that is, one should keep remembering the holy names of the Lord, the pastimes of the Lord, and all of that, and chanting the holy names of the Lord all the time. So 24 hours. Coming on to the next stanza, we have only a few minutes left. Hari sada vase tatra yatra bhagavata jana gayanti bhakti bhavena harinameva kevalam. Hari sada vase tatra. Lord Hari always resides there. Yatra bhagavata jana, where the exalted devotees, gayanti bhakti bhavena, where the exalted devotees are always singing with devotional feelings the holy names of the Lord. So this is the glories of the holy names. We've also heard Srila Prabhupada tell us always that when one chants the holy name, how Krishna personally comes and dances on the tongue of the devotee who is chanting the holy names with feeling. So that's another important thing. We should try to come to the stage where we are chanting with feeling. So before we are able to chant with feeling, we should chant and always chant. So first stage is chant carefully with attention and always chant. So once we do these things, then we come onto the stage where we are able to chant with feeling, and then Lord Krishna himself will come and dance on the tongue. The tunde tandavini, how the holy name performs dance on the lips, on the tongue of one who's chanting. Next verse. Aho dukham mahadukham dukha dukhataram yata kachartam vismritam ratna harinameva kevalam. Oh, dukham mahadukham. What a sorrow, what a great sorrow. Dukha dukhataram yata. There is nothing more sorrowful than this. And what is that more sorrowful than this? That there could be nothing more sorrowful than this. Kachartam vismritam ratna. How the people they think kachartam, that they have forgotten the real value of the holy names of the Lord, which is just like a diamond, a jewel, ratna hari nam, and they're thinking of it just like broken pieces of glass. So when we hear the glories of the name, of the holy name, this is reminded to us again and again. Then we realize that that this is not just any ordinary thing. This is a tendency in this material world, how everything starts to become very mundane and very, very stale. Everything becomes like a ritual. Now, even in our own sadhana, in our own practices also, when we keep doing something day in, day out, it starts becoming like a ritual. Similarly, chanting the holy names also after some time just becomes like a ritual. We just have to finish our 16 rounds somehow or the other, doesn't matter. We might be talking to someone else, doing so many parallel processing, having a phone in one hand, chanting on the other. And then often people say, at least I'm doing something and I'm chanting. It's better than not chanting. That is true. But we should remember how the holy name of the Lord is like a jewel, and we've been given such a precious jewel, and then we should not treat it like just as a mere piece of glass. Now, how do we do that? By hearing the glories of the holy name, that how glorious the holy name is. Once we realize that, then we realize, what we have been given, and then we'll put our heart and soul into ensuring that we chant it carefully. Okay, 2 stanzas remaining. The 7th one. Diyatam diyatam karno niyatam niyatam vacha giyatam giyatam nityam hare nameva kevalam. Diyatam diyatam should be heard again and again. Karna niyatam niyatam should be uttered. Okay. Niyatam niyatam vacha. With the words, it should be uttered again and again. Giyatam giyatam nityam should be sung again and again. So, just like I said, we should all the time in our minds, we should be chanting the holy names. We should also keep singing. Might get boring to just keep chanting. So, just there are so many nice kirtaniyas who have given so many nice tunes. So we just keep singing it or the holy names or keep chanting it in our minds. And we should also keep hearing it again and again. And especially hearing the holy names from the mouth of a pure devotee is very, very powerful. That's why many devotees in their house, they'll always have the Prabhupada tape on all the time. That Prabhupada chanting box is there. How either the bhajan of Prabhupada or the singing the Mahamantra or just the chanting, it is on all the time. And it makes everything so auspicious. In the house, it feels like, there is completely Shuddha Sattva, there is mode of goodness. And when that is on all the time, we keep hearing it again and again. The last stanza. Trinikritya jagat sarvam rajate sakalopari chedanandamayam shuddham hare nameva kevalam. Trinikritya, as a blade of grass, jagat sarvam, the entire universe. So the holy name, when one realizes the glories of the holy name, it makes the whole universe seem as a blade of grass. Rajate sakalopari, it reigns supreme over all. Chedanandamayam. Now it is full of eternally conscious divine ecstasy. And it is supremely pure. The holy name of Sri Hari alone is everything. So when one realizes the glories of the holy name, that's when one realizes that how the holy name is everything. And everything else seems to be pale in comparison. So what I was talking about, we give so much importance to our daily activities. So naturally, when one realizes the glories of the holy name, everything seems pale, that how the holy name of the Lord is everything, and one is completely immersed in chanting the holy name and tasting the sweetness. So I will end here. I've gone 5 minutes over time. So any questions or comments or any corrections? A lot of senior devotees here. So reflections is if there was a particular point that actually struck you, that you thought, that's a nice point, and how that can be inspiring. So also please correct me if I went wrong anywhere. I've spoken much beyond my own realizations.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Such a wonderful nectarian Japa Talk. You touched upon the, how to get inspiration, how to get attraction, towards the holy name, right? By hearing the glories of the holy name. And you nicely explained about the, that Vastunde Tandavani, and why are we not getting the attraction also. You talked about you're suffering from the jaundice disease, and, and so remedy also you nicely explained. Actually, you touched upon lot of, pastimes also. Like Pujan Prabhu, what are his experiences in the flight? Very nectarian talk, Prabhuji.
Thank you. I've just spoken what I've learned. So if anyone has any questions or any comments.
Yeah, now the floor is open for questions. Yeah. They can unmute themselves and ask, or otherwise they can put the question in chat window also.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So one thing I got to my takeaway is whenever your mind is idle, don't put other things. Like at least you pick up your bead, or even if you cannot, fill means complete, 8 rounds. So at least you keep on chanting, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, so that whole day, whatever you prepare, then only when you wake up at morning, then you can do the chanting properly. So these are the things, my takeaway and my goal that I should do in order to be a proper, attentive chanter. So that I want to achieve. And thanks for giving that thing, because generally whenever we have some free time, we talk or do anything so like a TV and all that. So these are the bad things which we want to get rid of eventually. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you for highlighting that point. So we've heard that mind works on a very simple principle, GIGO principle, GIGO. So that is garbage in, garbage out, good in, good out. So whatever we keep putting in our mind, that will automatically come out. So just like a lot of people I've seen in my own relatives, the first thing that they do in the morning when they get up is open phone, look at WhatsApp, look at Facebook. Why? Because throughout the day, whenever they have free time, they keep doing that. So naturally, whenever we have free time, whatever that we keep going to, that is something that we start developing rati for, that we start developing attraction for that. And naturally, one does that. So throughout our whole life, so we chant our 16 rounds properly on our beats. But whenever we have free time, so naturally we keep chanting the holy name again and again. Naturally, what will happen is the mind will get conditioned to chant the holy names. And this is something that will be very, very helpful at the time of death, because throughout our whole life we have cultivated this habit. So it starts off with, whenever we wake up, automatically the holy names of the Lord come into mind, and then naturally we develop it to such a point that we are chanting always, and this is something that will certainly help us at the time of death.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Siddharth Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for sharing the glorification of Japa with so much clarity. Prabhuji, I would take this opportunity to ask the question, because usually you're always in the humble mood. So here you have to answer. So how, Prabhuji, life is a journey, Prabhuji, right? It's not a short-term thing, because suddenly when we say, as you said today, we get inspired and we chant more, but as the time progresses, looking at our past karma and the load of sins which we have done, millions of birth and death, somehow Maya overpowers us, and it makes sure that sometimes chanting we feel is more of a mechanical chanting. Now, of course, as shared in chat, and you said as well, that the solution is to chant more, but our mind is such that in the continuity, sometimes when we get this, then we see that Maya challenges us with such a situation which we have not faced before. It's like you have passed IIT, now next exam is MIT, US. Now you have never done before, right? So the chances of passing is less. Now that leads to disappointment internally, no matter how much we hear the lectures and all. So the question is that every time you move to the next level, supposedly, which also is our concoction, a new challenge comes. And higher you go, loner you become. Materially, in spiritual sense, I'm saying, if you can understand.
Yes,
and that leads to how to keep yourself alert, motivated in that sense. Because I've seen in Prabhupada's devotees, direct devotees of Prabhupada also, I've seen the ones who have become deviated and the ones who are so dedicated and committed. So how should be alert throughout our life and manage?
Okay. So, Guruji, if I understand your question correctly, there are two parts to the question. One is, how do we ensure that as we are progressing, the exams of life also keep increasing in intensity? You have passed IIT, but next is MIT, and so on and so forth. How do we ensure that we are able to overcome those challenges, and then we are not put down by those challenges? And the second part is that as we keep progressing, we obviously, everything in this material world is like a pyramid. So the higher you go, the lesser number of people would be there. So as you progress both materially and spiritually, you will find less of your peers, right, and more of juniors. So how do we ensure that we are able to maintain our integrity and also ensure that we don't fall down from a position. Is that correct, Prabhuji? Is the understanding correct?
Yes, Prabhuji, precisely. Thank you.
Okay. I think, Prabhuji, I should be asking the question and you should be answering this because I'm really not in a position to answer it as well as you have a much better understanding to this. But since still, I think you have asked this for the benefit of everyone, I'll try to answer this based on what I've heard from my own seniors. Don't have complete realizations, but so from what I've heard is the first part of the question, that how do we ensure that we are able to overcome all the obstacles of life that keep increasing in intensity, that as we keep on becoming more and more pure, pure in the sense as we progress in our spiritual life, how do we ensure that we are able to face the challenges that Krishna sends our way? So the first thing that we should always keep in mind is, on our own, we don't have any capability, we don't have any capacity. Whatever that we have is by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. That even the capacity to fight Maya or any kind of challenges or obstacles that come in our life, that strength is also given by Krishna, and the tests are also given by Krishna. So Krishna only is doing everything. So what we have to always remember is that we have to surrender to the Supreme Lord. So I've often heard this in a lot of lectures, that when we surrender to the Supreme Lord, we can overcome all obstacles. So now what does surrender mean? It is always practical to remember that there are 6 practical things to what surrender means. One is always accepting things that are favorable for the service of the Lord. Second, rejecting things that are not favorable for the service of the Lord. And the third thing is something that is very inspiring, and that is for me in my personal life. Whenever I am faced with a particular dilemma, and I've heard this from other devotees also, when they are faced with this particular dilemma, this third aspect of surrender plays such an important role. And the third aspect is avashya rakshipe Krishna iti vishwasa, that having this firm faith. So now this is an aspect of surrender, having the firm faith that whatever happens, Krishna will always protect. So that means whenever I'm faced with any challenge of Maya, even if I fall down, even let's say, now fall down could mean different things for different people. Somebody who's in the initial stages of spiritual life, fall down would be at a very gross level. Someone who's at a very senior level or advanced stage in devotional life, fall down could be a subtle thing. For example, one resolves that one will not think about some bad thought that comes to the mind, one will not entertain. But many times, let's say one is in a weak position and one entertains that thought. Or maybe, let's say, somebody is fighting with pride, and the tendency is there to become proud of one's position and then just think lowly of others in just one's mind. One resolves one will not do this, but oftentimes something will happen, and then one will actually might just in their own mind, they might fall down. So this will happen, and we might feel very bad about it or guilty about it, but we should remember that even whatever happens to us, if we are surrendered to the Lord, if we just have this firm faith that Krishna will protect us, Krishna actually protects us. Krishna protects us in his own way. We don't know what way he'll protect us, but Krishna is always there to protect us. And Krishna never tests anyone beyond their capability. It'll always be a little bit more, so that that we can actually grow. But I once, during my very initial stages of Krishna consciousness, everything was going very smoothly in my life. So 6 months had passed, I got a new job, I got a promotion, I got a salary hike. Everything was going very smoothly. And I was discussing this with my counselor. Everything is going so smoothly, and I'm feeling a little bit of fear that, something bad will happen. And how will I actually experience that? Something bad, like maybe, I might get involved in some accident, I might become crippled or something, like some very nasty thoughts were going on in my head. And how will I be able to actually bear that? And someone might just take away all my riches. We have all this fear, right? That if we surrender to the Lord will actually just take away everything. That famous verse is there, and then we become afraid of that. How will I survive? But this question, this thought of how will I survive, this shows that we are not on that level. Because we are not on that complete level of surrender, these things will not happen to us. And my counselor said, if Krishna actually is taking something away from someone's life completely and he's testing him to that level, his name would be there in Bhagavatam, or some other scripture where their pastimes will be discussed, that these are very, very exalted devotees. So we should understand that Krishna always will test us based on our capacity. So if we have this faith, Krishna will always protect us, and whatever challenge is coming in our life, Krishna has given us the strength to be able to face it. All we need is this faith. And then there are 3 more aspects of surrender. One more aspect is that being very, very meek and humble, and all being always dependent on the mercy of the Lord. So when we always think like this, so daily when we go in front of the Lord, we pray that, Lord, I'm completely dependent on your mercy. Even before chanting, if we do this prayer, that I am completely dependent on your mercy, even for me to be able to chant your rounds properly. Even if you're not chanting our rounds properly, Krishna hears every single prayer of ours, every single word, every single thought that goes through our head. Krishna knows that. And Krishna is not a judgmental father who will be angry with us. He is a very, very loving person who always thinks about our own welfare. So he'll ensure that, that we are able to pass and overcome all the tests of life. But we just need to maintain faith, and we need to have this aspect of surrender, both towards our own seniors, our gurus, Srila Prabhupada, teachings, instructions of Srila Prabhupada, and Lord Krishna. Now, the second part of your question was, as we keep growing senior, we are more in a lonely position. So how do we? Probably I'm not at that level. I'm still at a very, very junior level. I don't think I can answer your question properly. But from what I've heard is, spiritual life is like a razor's edge. So once you become more and more senior, the razor keeps on becoming more and more sharper. At even a small mistake that you might do might cause a lot of bloodshed, not just for someone, for that senior devotee, but also for a lot of people who are dependent on him. So I think just faithfully following the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, and then just ensuring that I don't really have an answer to your question. Maybe the senior devotees. I see Sudhir Gopal Prabhuji is there, other devotees, if they can talk about this aspect. Sorry for the long answer, but yes. So Shantru, I hope I answered at least the first part of your question.
No, Prabhuji, very beautifully answered. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. It's very important to keep reminding ourselves. Hence I asked. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So there are a few comments also, Prabhuji, I'll quickly read before closing the session. So the comment from Sadhu Sevan Das Prabhu. Thanks a lot, Prabhuji. Wonderful session. The point what I liked most was chant whenever we have time, especially when we go to bed. Morning, it will resume automatically. So the Mataji wrote, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranam. Wonderful session, Prabhu. Kavalastakam meaning is so nice, and like Prabhupada says, the only remedy for inattentive japa is to do more japa with focus and determination. Rajalakshmi Mataji wrote, thank you so much, Prabhu, for mentioning the importance of holy name and how we can sing without wasting a single moment. One more point is, holy name is a jewel and so precious, and breath can stop at any time. That should be in mind always while chanting. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Sadhu Sevan Prabhuji, Sudha Mataji, and Rajalakshmi Mataji. Yes, definitely. This is something that is very wonderful. If you go to bed while chanting the holy names, now after a week or a few weeks, you'll definitely realize when we wake up, the holy name will be there. There'll be no feelings attached to it, but at least it'll come to the mind automatically. So it just takes practice. We keep doing it again and again, and eventually it'll become second nature. I think we can end here, Prabhuji.
Sure.
So thank you to all the devotees here, especially Shri Gaur Prabhuji, Rajesh Prabhuji, for giving me this chance. And really don't have any qualifications. Please, I pray to every single devotee here. Please kindly pray for me. Humble request, so that I can improve my own japa, and whatever lofty words that I spoke, that I myself should be able to follow that. So Hare Krishna. Thank you for giving me the chance.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for this wonderful teachings. Thank you. Hare Krishna.